Good afternoon, one and all. My name is Adityan S., trainee social worker, Sri Savarisha College, Murikkumayal. So, today I am here to take class on the topic Basic Elements of Scientific Methods, Concepts, Conceptual or Operational Definitions, and Assumptions. So, let us move on to the slide one by one. So, first of all, we can discuss what is a scientific method. The scientific method is a process of objectively establishing facts through testing and experimentation. The basic process involves making an observation, forming hypotheses, making prediction, conducting an experiment, and finally analyzing the result. The principles of the scientific method can be applied in many areas, including the scientific research, business, and technology. So, the definition says that it is a process of objectively establishing facts. The science we already know that science is a collection of facts. So scientific methods is the process of objectively establishing the facts through testing and experimentation. Only the facts which have an evidence. It is an evidence based study. So it is established through the testing and experimentation. The basic process involves making an observation, forming hypothesis, and making a prediction. The observation and making formulation of hypothesis is uh, possible through the scientific method. So conducting an experiment and finally analyzing the result. So after the making of hypothesis, it will then conducting an experiment is very essential, and finding and analyzing the results is very essential in a scientific method. So the principles of scientific methods can be applied in many areas, including the scientific research, business, and technology. These are some of the areas in which the scientific methods can be practiced, that is the scientific research in business and technologies, etc. So the next slide says about uh, basic elements of the scientific methods. There are some of the basic elements such as make observations. So the one of the it is one of the important element comes under scientific method is making observation. Observation is very essential part of the scientific method. Then formulating a question. Uh, Science is based on a fact. For a fact there must be a question. So formatting a question or hypothesis is very essential. So conduct experimentation. For practicing this and for proving it, we must conduct an experiments. Then for experiments we must collect data and analyze the data. Then coming to the conclusion, drawing the conclusions. So communicate the findings after drawing the conclusions, and after drawing the conclusion we must get a findings. So the communication of findings is very essential. Then replicate the experiment for validations. So we can say that we can only say that if the data and the conclusions that we have make, and we have what we have formulated with a hypothesis or questions, we must replicate the experiments. Then we must generalize it. So it must be a valid one. So then only we can say that if it is universally accepted, then only we can say that it is a validate one. So next one is what is conceptual and operational definitions. So research, it is very commonly used terms that are conceptual and operational definitions. Let us move on to what it is. The research studies usually include terms that must be carefully and precisely defined so that others know what has been done. There are no ambiguities. There are two types of definitions, that is conceptual and operational definitions. They are, the conceptual definition says that it articulates what exactly is to be measured or observed in a study. The conceptual definition focus upon in what exactly what is the exact one in exactly there one must be a area of study. So it articulates that what is to be exactly studied or measured or observed in a study. So conceptual definition focus upon the measuring and observation of the study. Then the operational definition is that it articulates how to capture, measure, assess the value. So the value, the arithmetic and value conversions are done in the operational definitions. So these are the two important definitions in the scientific study, that is the conceptual and operational definitions. Then we can move on to the assumptions of scientific method. Some of the common assumptions are naturalism. So the scientific method assumes the natural world operates according to the consistent and understandable laws. So we already stated that science and the collection of facts are universal. So it is applicable in anywhere. So which can be studied and explained through empirical investigation. Some of the empirical investigations can be used for the scientific study. It is based on the this understandable laws. So it mainly focus upon the basic laws, etc. Then the determination. Scientists assume that events in natural world have causes that can be identified and understood, allowing for the prediction and control of the outcomes based on underlying principles. So there must be definite or determined factors for allowing the prediction or control of this outcome on the underlying principle. The underlying principles are again scrutinized for making the study a valid one. Then the uniformity of nature. It assumes that the laws of nature are consistent across time, space, allowing generalization predictions are based on observed patterns and regularities. The uniformity of nature means there is a consistency in the scientific method. Uh, there is the uniformity of intervals that it allows for a generalization and prediction based on certain patterns and regularities. Certain timing and spacings are there, so it is called the uniformity of nature. Then materialism. Scientists assume that natural world is composed of material entities and physical processes that can be studied and understood through observation, measurement, and experimentation. The materialistic study in the scientific methods, it states that some of the observation, measurement, and experiments are weighty, and these are some of the material entities and the physical process that can be used and to study and understood the scientific method. So some of the other are reductionism. The scientific methods assumes that complex phenomena can be broken into simpler components or underlying principle, facilitating the study and explanation of natural phenomena. Reductionism mainly focuses, the name itself, reducing the complex to a simple one. It focuses upon the reducing a complex thing into a simple one. That is called the reductionism. Then objectivity. There must be the specific objectivity for the scientific study. Scientific assumes that knowledge can be obtained through unbiased observation. The unbiased observations and analysis of data is very clear, very common in the scientific study without personal beliefs or preference influencing the interpretation of results. The unbiased observations are mainly focused upon the scientific study, so it focuses upon the objectivity. Then rationality. The scientific method assumes that the logical reasoning and critical thinking are essential for evaluating the evidence, formulating hypotheses, and drawing valid conclusions based on the empirical observation. So the scientific study must be a rational one. So it does not include any more influence in anything. It must be a rational study. So formulating the hypothesis and drawing valid conclusions are based on the empirical observations only. So evaluating the evidence, there must be a the critical thinking and the logical reasoning are very important one in conducting a scientific study. So that makes the study a rational one. The rationality is maintained there. Then consistency. We already discussed about consistency in some of the other topics, that the study must be very consistent. It allows that laws of nature do not change arbitrarily, allowing for the development of theories and models that accurately describe and predict natural phenomena. Consistent means it doesn't focus on any change. Some of the laws are very consistent. This that focus on the consistency of the study. Then empirical verification. It says that the method assumes that hypotheses and theories should be tested and verified through empirical evidence. The empirical evidence is very much importance in the scientific study. The empirical evidences are used to analyze the data. The based on the empirical verifications only, we will formulate the hypothesis and we will draw to a conclusion. So it's providing a basis for accepting or rejecting the scientific claims. So empirical verification helps to accepting or rejecting the scientific claims. So if the empirical value is focus upon the scientific empirical value will is making any confusions or any finding a false data, it will we can reject our scientific claims. So the progressive nature. Scientists assume that scientific knowledge is very progressive. The progressive nature consists of discovering the new theories, building upon existing theories, demanding our understanding of the natural world over time. The progressive nature mainly focus upon the new discoveries of the theories without the existing one. It mainly focuses on the expanding our understanding the natural world over time. After over time, there must be certain changes. So the new things that must be discovered. So it comprises of the progressive nature of the scientific method. Topic we have discussed about the what all are the scientific methods, assumptions. Um, that's all about my topic. Thank you and have a nice.